coming to you live, or at least live if you're watching on Sunday on YouTube and not listening on Monday, from St. Louis, Missouri. Joined, as always, from Springfield, Illinois, by my co-host at 3BFF, Dan. What's up?
What's going on, guys? I'm in day 4 of 8 straight work days, so I'm ready for a few drinks.
Sounds pretty miserable, but hey, a few drinks is what we're going to have. That's what we do here. We're going to drink beer, and we are going to talk running backs. So we've condensed running backs down into one episode because it's not that deep of a class this year. But promise you there's going to be plenty of coverage on the guys you want to hear about, and probably even a few you don't want to hear about. Before we go ahead and get started with that, though, first off, we got some thank yous to dish out. Dan, you and I both hit milestones this week.
We did.
1,000 followers. That's in large part thanks to the list that Ryan McDowell put out. He every year will pull Twitter, basically who are some good follows in this category, and for the under 1,000, we both ended up in, I believe it was like the top 5. So thank you first off to the community and everybody that nominated us. It's full of great people, but the bump from that put us both over 1,000. Ryan does great work promoting everyone, but also the people that came out and nominated us. So just wanted to lead off the show with a thank you to those guys, because we are grateful to all of our new followers. Welcome. If this is your first show, double welcome.
Yeah, it's been incredible. I mean, I think we were both pretty close to 1,000. We were both over, I think, 900. But the amount of reach out and just all the love that we got from all the guys that we've known, for the last couple of years doing this, and then, from all the new people that decided that, hey, maybe these guys are worth the damn to see all their retweets and all the stupid shit that they post, because
right.
Spoiler alert, we like to post a lot of stupid shit.
Yeah, it is our personal accounts. Those are going to be a massive mess of who knows what. But thank you to those guys. For those that are not following us, you can find us on Twitter. I'm at Hot BFF. He's at 3BFF. The show is at BeerfieldFF. That's also available on Instagram and Untapped. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube as well, Beerfield Fantasy Football. Every time we record, we do stream live on YouTube. So if you want to interact, drop a question or something there. I got to get better at tweeting the link out whenever we start these things. Something I've been forgetting to do, but show up. We also have merch. Dan's modeling the hat. Lean down a little bit. Lean a little more. There you go. Dan's modeling the hat. We do have shirts available as well. You can reach out to us at beerfieldfantasy@gmail.com or on our individual DMs. And some promo. Dan, did you do any guest spots or anything this week?
I did not.
Okay.
I just did the...
you were part of the mock, though.
Yes. All
right, cool. So there's a mock draft that Loaded Box Podcast, Ben and DJ, do some awesome work over there that they put out. They have a write-up on that. Dan and I both participated in that. That is not just offensive players. That is everything. So that's interesting. I was also a guest on the Fantasy Fanalist podcast, I think is what they're going by now, formerly Top 2, for their NFC North preview. So be sure to check that out as well. They're nice enough to have us on, so shout out those guys.
Definitely.
And then the other thing that I want to make you guys aware of, so every year we do this, we're doing it again this year. There will be a live draft episode where we'll be with you for the entire round of the first round NFL draft, giving you analysis, drinking everything we have in sight, chatting. We may do some other things to interact, but that will be April 25th on YouTube during the NFL draft. So be sure to pop in and hang out.
Definitely. It's a good time. You get to see us complain about things that we're not quite sure, especially when it comes to defensive players, but we'll make guesses. We'll drink beer. We'll probably drink whiskey. And
who knows?
By pick 20, who knows where the fuck we'll be.
Exactly. We'll be guessing and getting a lot of things wrong.
Yes. But better than Mel Kiper, though.
Yeah, better than Mel Kiper. Anything else you would like to promote? Any shout-outs that I missed before we tell people what's fueling us today?
I think that's it.
All right, let's find out what's fueling us.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right, Dan, what you drinking on?
I'm drinking on a Hawaii 5 Ale. It's a new beer from Destihl. Destill's out of Normal, Illinois. I was privy to be able to go up there a couple weeks ago and see their massive fucking brew house. It is insane. But this is a blonde ale with I think 5 different fruits. It's with pecan, pineapple, coconut, mango, peach, and guava. Just a shit ton of fruit.
Shit ton of fruit. I did not put that on the lower third, but I saw your note and that made me laugh a little bit. Destihl also very, very good with the fruit stuff typically, so I'd expect good things out of that. As for me, I also had the pleasure of visiting this place last weekend, I believe it was, but I've got Vanilla Base Weight from Side Project Brewing. They're out of St. Louis, Missouri. It's a robust porter that's finished on vanilla beans and cocoa nibs. So full review on that later. They do some cool stuff there. A lot of different takes on like wild ales and sours. The brewery's fully female staffed, which is kind of a cool thing to see. So definitely an awesome place to drop by if you're ever in St. Louis. That's what's fueling us today. Let's go ahead and get into the news.
News.
All right, kicking it off, starting out with some coaching news. Greg Schiano has resigned as the Patriots defensive coordinator before he was ever even formally announced, citing faith and family reasons, which means he either did a line of coke or cheated on his wife most of the time.
It's probably with Robert Kraft getting those handies.
It probably was. So they're back to the pseudo defensive coordinator hunt, but we all know Belichick really runs that anyway.
Pretty much.
Roster news, the things we actually do care about. The Eagles acquired running back Jordan Howard from the Bears for a Philly cheesesteak and a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air soundtrack. Actually, it was really a 2026 rounder that could become a 5th. But what are your thoughts on Jordan Howard in Philly?
I love this move. Philadelphia generally posts as a top 10 offensive line when they're all healthy. This is an offense that knows how to operate well when everyone's healthy. They should get down in the red zone. They should be able to do things enough to put Jordan Howard in a position to score touchdowns, a lot of red zone trips. There should be a lot of spacing, just given the amount of weapons that's on this offense. And with no real pass catcher there right now, you can say Darren Sproles, well, he's fucking old, and so is Corey Clement, but he kind of sucks.
Yeah,
there could be a lot of work here if they don't address the spell back, change of pace, pass catching back in the draft.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Jordan Howard, the thing people don't realize about him, they're still hanging on to this old take from when he was a rookie that his hands are bad. He had a better catch rate last year and a lower drop rate than Todd Gurley. So that's kind of a tired take. Yeah, he's not dynamic in space. Yards per reception wasn't necessarily great. But Philly does have a better offensive line than the Bears. They're better at blocking. He's going to be able to grind it out a bit more between the tackles, and we know he can be explosive when he does have those holes open up for him. So I'm not saying he's more than the running back 2 that he was last season or should be hyped up any higher than that, but I think he's got a higher ceiling now. I think the floor is about the same, though.
Yeah, I put him about an RB2, mid to low. It just depends how the offense is going to function, and if everyone can stay healthy, which has been kind of an issue with Philadelphia over the past season and a half.
Who this really hurts is Josh Adams, who had a couple of good weeks and then completely faded off.
I don't really care about anybody behind him. This Scooter JJ, I don't think he's even been signed anywhere else. I thought last I saw that maybe he was going back to Philly, but I think that ends that. Ends that happening.
Also, I think that you're looking at Smallwood, Clement, and Howard being the guys there.
Yeah,
unless they draft somebody. All right, moving along. Jared Cook is still expected to sign with the Saints despite Gronkowski's retirement. New England's interest. There was some thought that he might do a 180 there. That is not going to be the case. Talked about that at length on last episode, so go check that out if you want any more analysis. The Jets signed tight end Neil Sterling as they continue to corner the market on mediocre tight ends to back up Chris Herndon.
I think he was with them before.
He was.
Yeah, so whatever.
He was. He's like the third guy that is just a name that they've signed, though, to try to get a backup.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay signed quarterback Blaine Gabbert to back up Jameis Winston. He should not be the nuisance that Ryan Fitzpatrick was.
Let's just hope so, because the last time he backed up a quarterback from that draft class, he found his way to actual starting reps. So,
well, Blaine Gabbert.
Prayers up to Jameis Winston, to stay healthy.
Yeah, exactly. Gabbert does normally find his way to starting reps, but Jameis Winston not quite as beat up as Mariota.
No, not at all.
The Raiders signed quarterback Landry Jones to compete for the backup spot with Nathan Peterman and Mike Glennon. This is very much a throw shit at the wall and hope something sticks approach.
This is like a bad nightmare for like shitty quarterbacks. Oh my God.
The last 3 quarters of Raiders preseason games are going to be must-watch TV, and I believe broadcast on Comedy Central.
There's going to be some defensive players that they're going to be playing in the preseason. They're going to be making the roster because of how bad these quarterbacks are.
More or less, yep. You're going to get like somebody picks off Peterman 3 times and he gets a job.
Jesus Christ.
The Panthers re-signed Cameron Artis-Payne to a 1-year deal for reasons.
He knows the playbook.
That's about the only reason.
Yeah.
The Raiders signed running back Isaiah Crowell to a 1-year deal. This is noteworthy because Lynch isn't expected to make a decision on his future until after the draft. I think with them staying in Oakland, he does play another year, but if not, we're back to the, hey, Isaiah Crowell might be interesting thing again.
I don't want to play that game, but I think what this means is that Oakland's not going to reach for a running back. I think they're not going to be in this dire need to get one day, late day one with their 2 late first round picks or a day 2 pick. Crowell can do a lot of good things. We've seen it. We saw it in Cleveland. We saw it in a couple of games with the Jets. It just depends how the draft falls to Oakland.
Yeah, and we like Chris Warren as well. So
that is true.
And Oakland has enough needs to where they're probably better served not spending high draft capital on a running back this year.
Yeah, this is they could be waiting for the 2020 draft, the next one, which has a little bit better, higher ceiling running backs, to say the least.
I agree. The Eagles re-signed tight end Richard Rodgers to a 2-year deal. This means absolutely nothing. He's firmly behind Ertz and Goddard.
Yeah, that's it.
Bills signed running back Centerese Perry to a 1-year deal, basically to bring down the average age of that running back room.
It's to replace Chris Ivory, who I believe they cut.
Yeah. So
who the fuck cares?
Yeah, Perry couldn't. Yeah. He was with the Dolphins for a bit last year at Bears before that. He's not a threat to anything. Speaking of people that aren't threats, the Raiders signed tight end Luke Wilson. This does not preclude them from drafting one, which I think they probably do.
No, they'll. I think they're still in the market to draft one of the top tight ends. I think they'll do it with one of their first 3-round picks. There, Wilson is he's a good blocking tight end that could never really break out from Seattle behind Jimmy Graham and went to the void land that is Detroit. So
yeah, tight ends in Detroit, not a good thing.
No.
All right, on to the injury news. Jake Butt claims he's 5 months out on his recovery from ACL surgery. That'd put him back by training camp. They do still have the annoyance of Troy Fumagalli in Denver. Jeff Hireman, I believe, was re-signed. Lacasse is gone, so there's going to be a fight for tight end reps there. But Jake Butt's a guy we liked a lot last year, but can't seem to stay healthy. So him being back by training camp will be at least interesting.
Yeah, this is again a wasteland of tight ends to avoid.
Yep,
they got some relevancy, I guess, in 2 tight end and maybe high tight end premiums, but at this point, we'll see what happens with them.
Guys are going to be talking about as streamers later on, but probably shouldn't be drafted.
True, very true.
Guys that should be drafted, Jack Doyle's on track to be ready for training camp following hip surgery.
Be still my heart. I want my Jack Doyle back for all the safety blankets on 3rd down.
Indeed. Marquise Lee isn't expected to be back from his knee injury until, quote, late in the preseason. So he may miss the beginning of the season.
That's going to open the door if Jacksonville decides to roll with some of these younger guys, or if they take a stab in the dark on one of these early receivers, which we will get to next week.
Yep. Darius Geis is expected to be a full go by training camp. Let's not forget about him. He's kind of getting a redo at his rookie deal, or rookie year, I guess.
Yeah, he's gonna be a fucking beast. If you haven't gone out there and at least attempted to see what his value is, go out and do it.
Yeah, go kick the tires, because if people are down on him because of the injury, he's a buy. Colt McCoy had surgery on his right leg. He's expected to be ready for OTAs to compete with Case Keenum for, that job.
And probably Daniel Jones, because somebody's going to fuck that up and draft him.
Probably. And Zeke, and passing game news for the Cowboys, center Travis Frederick's expected to be ready for off-season workouts following his battle with Guillain-Barré syndrome and a shoulder injury. So it's very good news for Zeke.
Yeah, and just great news overall. I hope he can, he can get past all this, and he's one of the best, if not the best center in football.
Yep. Jimmy Garoppolo is expected to be ready for training camp, so we'll finally maybe get to see what he can do with this offense. And then Doug Baldwin has sports hernia surgery scheduled for April, which will keep him out for 6 to 8 weeks. This means he's going to miss OTAs, but he should be back by training camp. We also talked about him at length on last week's episode, so go listen. But to sum that up, my thoughts on it were just that he may be due for a bounce back because he was playing more hurt than anybody even realized.
Yeah, and I still think he should just retire before he does his body any more damage, but if he doesn't, then I think there's a chance you can get a steal in your redrafts because his value is pretty low right now.
Yep. He'll be a late round upside pick. He's could be this year's Emmanuel Sanders as far as bounce back sale.
Yeah, good call.
But you got some volume issues there too. And on the retirement front, Jordy Nelson has officially retired after a fantastic career in Green Bay and then a not fantastic one in Oakland.
Well, the original White Lightning's gone.
Yeah,
I hate you, but I respect your game.
I did respect his game. Speaking of people, former Packers whose game I respected, TJ Lang retired after 10 seasons and being cut by the Lions. He had he's an offensive lineman, not fantasy relevant, but good career there.
He helped other players be fantasy relevant.
He did. And for the brand news, Shane Leckler, probably one of the best punters ever, also retired.
I hope some way, somehow he makes the Hall of Fame.
He should make the Hall of Fame.
I fucking love Shane Leckler. Love him.
Huge leg. I mean, we're a pro kicker show, generally speaking.
Yeah, we
are. So Shane Leckler, great career, and should be a surefire Hall of Famer.
Let's hope.
All right, that's all we got for news this week. Be sure to tune in each and every week for the latest in news that I deem relevant. Let's get into the draft.
Draft preview.
All right, we were talking running backs this week. So we're going to do this kind of similar to last week. We're going to break down what I think is most people's top tier, or at least the guys that are getting the most hype. We'll jump into some people are talking. We'll do a little bit of debate on guys that Dan and I are not necessarily close on. And then we'll plant a couple flags and go home with the rankings reveal. So a lot to talk about here. Let's just go ahead and jump right in with the hype tier. So there's 3 guys that I have seen that are getting just a ton of hype this draft season. So, Dan, let's go ahead and break down. Who do you like the most out of Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, and David Montgomery?
I think right now before the draft takes, and there's going to be a lot of this. I know we said it a lot last year, but the name of this episode is 90 Spot Matters because my top 6, 7 could change completely after the draft. But right now it's Miles Sanders. Absolutely love what he's able to do after he took over the role for Saquon Barkley. He saw over 20 carries, 20 catches when he took that job. He was able to match the same yards per carry with them at 5.9. It doesn't mean a lot, but it says that he can at least do it. He played in the slot. He's not a terrible pass catcher. He's a smooth brother, makes great cuts. He may not have the top end speed, but he does have enough burst and agility to make people miss and to reach the second level with ease.
Yeah, he's very patient, very decisive is something I noticed with him. Picks his way through the line and then goes. Quick cuts, subtle footwork, above average hands. Uses the hurdle on the same level that I think Justin Jackson uses a stiff arm. So
yeah,
he really shot up the rankings though because of the bad combine performances of everybody else around him. Like we thought he was good, and he athletically is about the only one that held up to their tape.
Yeah, it's big. I mean, like he looked better at the I guess he tested better than what I thought he would. The fact that he ran a sub 4.5 just makes up for the fact he doesn't have the quote unquote top end speed. There are a couple of concerns. He had 5 fumbles his final season. I think he had 7, or he had 6 or 7 in his career. So hopefully that can get fixed up. That doesn't take a lot. You can just change the way that you hold the football, and just how you attack the holes in that way. Vision is a bit up and down as a runner, but again, I expect that to get coached up.
Yep, and it's just some little refinement points. I think that he's probably not just the top pick in this draft, but I don't think that there's a high bust potential with him. He put up a good 3 cone at 6.89. Wasn't a lot on tape I didn't like about him.
Exactly.
So on to a guy that I think everybody thought was going to be the number one after the combine, and then really didn't have a great pro day, Josh Jacobs. So what have you seen with Josh Jacobs? What did you like on tape? What are your concerns?
He's my favorite running back on tape. It's like, to me, he's a bigger John Kelly. Great balance. He's a very good pass catcher. A lot like Sony Michel did. He created his hype through his last couple of games. He was able to get involved into the offense in his final season there. He's a type of power runner. He keeps his legs moving so he can keep pushing those piles. He's a patient runner. Didn't have a lot of drops as a pass catcher. It's just how he's going to be used at the next level, and that small unknown with a bad pro day just kind of makes me a little bit nervous on where he goes. But because he went to Alabama, I expect the team to draft him higher than maybe what I would have.
I do as well. And college production is going to be a bit limited when you're on a team with Najee Harris and Damian Harris, who are both very, very good running backs in their own right, especially this season. His career high in touches was only 140, but receiving numbers and touchdown numbers are quite good given that general lack of usage, which means he had to be efficient. You mentioned that he was patient. He looks like he processes information very, very quick as well. He runs powerful, bounces off of tackles, runs over defenders, and shows good acceleration in and out of his cuts. So for his size, I think that he has decent speed, extends plays pretty well, or at least it shows up on tape. I don't know why that didn't necessarily translate, although he was coming off of injury. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But I'm with you. His tape was my favorite to watch.
Yep.
But there's some more red flags with him. There's going to be red flags with a lot of people we talk about on this.
Exactly.
And then a lot of everyone's number one going into the combine and really fell out of that. Didn't fall out of this tier, but kind of hurt himself with a 4.63 40 subpar vertical. David Montgomery at Iowa State. Let's talk about him for a second.
He's got good size, 5'11", 216. So just like Josh Jacobs, he fits the mold of what a bell cow could be. Speed was never really going to be high for him. When you watch his tape, you see it on there. He just 4.7 yards per carry, I believe, in his final season. He didn't average much more after that. So offensive line was always an issue. But he's a strong runner. He's a good pass catcher. He does a lot of the little things well. It's just whether or not he can be that explosive running back that can get you those huge, massive, games, or is he a guy that needs to see 15 to 20 touches to be productive because he doesn't have the burst plus the top end speed to be that one hit runner that can make up his entire day with just one run.
Yeah. Now I will say this about David Montgomery. He did create a lot for himself. He was not running behind a good line. He showed an ability to bounce off tackles and break those. When he was running outside, he knew when to cut up field. He didn't take a whole lot of negative plays, which is really, really good to see, especially when you're not behind a good offensive line. I like backs that can create for themselves, and that was one thing he did well on tape. And he did it mostly through great vision, but also good decision making. He also has very, very good balance, which allows him to stay on his feet through first contact and bounce off a lot of those tackles. The biggest thing I liked, I didn't necessarily like the speed too much. He can be stood up for as good as he is bouncing off tackles. Doesn't generally push piles, but overall, I don't have a ton of concerns about him at the next level either, especially if he gets to a team that can do block a little bit.
Yeah, like for me, it's like he's the name, out of these top guys that I feel like he could fall out of, even day two. He was a guy that was maybe going to sniff day one. Just depends on what's combine came. His combine shows up. It's pretty below average. I don't think they've done their pro day yet to try to boost these numbers up. I think for him, his draft capital, obviously landing spot to see where he has to compete against. There's more nice scenes. He's per PFF, 129.1 elusive rating. That was the fourth best in the class and created the most missed tackles on a per attempt basis at 0.36 attempts. So as Hopper pointed out just here, he's great at creating for himself. And even with a bad offensive line, if he lands at a team like that, he can still be positive. Maybe not elite, but he can still be good.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Anything else you'd like to add on those three before we move on to some guys that people are talking about, and a couple we like, couple we don't?
No, I think that's it.
All right, moving on. So we're going to break down some of these less hyped guys that have a chance to do good things. People are talking about them, but there's a couple in here also that I don't necessarily agree with the hype. But let's start with somebody I do completely agree with the hype on, and that is Alex Barnes.
I fucking love what I saw from Alex Barnes. I didn't get to watch him until after the combine. I got to see the hype blow up. I think he had the best combine. And if you look at how he tested athletically, 145.4 spark score. Shout out to Nick for that one. Great burst score, great agility score. He's not a speed guy. He did show that on tape. You weren't expecting to see that. He's probably the biggest and at least the best put together back in terms of size and his size adjusted speed score. There's a lot to love from him. And even if he lands on a team that may need to use him as a first and second down grinder, let's say like Chicago now, he has the pass catching upside. I got to see that on film. He had 20 receptions in his final season with Kansas State. There's a lot to like here, and I think he's going to be one of the more surprising running backs in this class.
He already is surprising because of how he performed at his pro day. I watched him before the pro day, and I thought with a bigger bruiser back, I mean, he's 6 foot, 226 pounds. I wasn't expecting him to test as well as he did, but sub 7.3 cone, sub 4.6 40, I mean, that really propelled him. He's got a career yards per carry of 5.7, but the way he runs, he looks for people to hit and can lower the boom. He's a power runner, a one-cut guy that gets downhill. Patient, though, waits for his blocks to develop. He makes himself small at the line, which is a neat trick for a guy that's that big. He can bounce it outside when there aren't any holes. He is quick enough to do that, which is, for a guy his size, is pretty impressive. And as you mentioned, Dan, plus hands really showed up on tape despite just having 25 receptions. He looked comfortable catching the football.
Yeah, I mean, there are some concerns. He's already 22 years old, so you don't get that 1 year of the wait and see that we like from our rookie running backs when they come in at 21. He had 4 fumbles on the season, a 13% drop rate. I didn't see any drops on his tape, so I don't know where that stands from in terms of it's a poor hand technique, it's a poor catching technique, or is it just concentration type of drops. I would like to see more from him as a blocker. He's got the size. He needs to be better at it. He had a 95 block efficiency rating, which was 56 in the class per PFF. That did show up a bit on tape. He needs to get better at that if he expects to see a 3-down roll.
Yep, the liability as a pass blocker is really what got me. I had some concerns with his burst and acceleration on his tape, but that didn't necessarily translate to his combine. And he does occasionally miss an open cut back lane or get swallowed up, but he's a power runner, so you're going to have some negative plays out of that type of runner. But
yep.
The biggest concern for me is just that he may get pigeonholed into a 2-down back, especially to start his career, not because of his hands, but because of his blocking ability.
Yep.
All right, next guy I have is a guy that you're high on, Damian Harris.
It's not that I'm so high on him. It's just that when you look at I know you guys out there can't see how we graded these players, but my RB2 through RB5 all have the same grade. It's just more of who I feel comfortable with pre-draft to at least be somewhat fantasy relevant in year one. I think Damian Harris is one of the better chances because just like Josh Jacobs, he has the Alabama name. Those guys tend to get overdrafted, see Mark Ingram. But what's nice about Damian Harris is he had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in his sophomore and junior year. The efficiency did drop off a bit in the senior season, which is a concern, but that's when you add on Najee Harris and Josh Jacobs, not the best thing to add to that. But he had 42 receptions in his career and 9.3 yards per reception, which is good to see. And then when you watch his film, he shows decent vision. He's a very good power runner. Combine that with his pass catching ability, there's a lot to like here, and he could be the next Mark Ingram.
Yeah, Mark Ingram's a really, really good comp for him. He didn't necessarily translate the speed that I saw on his tape to his combine, but other than that, I didn't have a whole lot to not like about him. He did split a ton of time in college, so that's why the numbers aren't sky high. I mean, this is a guy that from his freshman year had Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Bo Scarborough, and Najee Harris to deal with as well. Those are all guys, typical Alabama, that you have to get touches to. But he does have exceptional burst, even though the long speed wasn't there. Runs with a very strong base, good hands, can make guys miss in the open field or run them over. Unlike Alex Barnes, I thought he was a decent blocker, and he's fast enough to break long runs. The only thing I didn't like about him, I thought the vision was somewhat lacking. I thought he was running behind a very, very good offensive line and didn't necessarily show the instincts that Josh Jacobs did. He wasn't overly agile. We don't have a 3-cone time on him because he didn't run it, which tells me he knows he's not overly agile also.
Yeah, probably.
And he did rely on a lot of his blockers. Now, you can't really fault somebody for having a good offensive line, but it does show up on tape when you're more taking the holes that are there versus creating for yourself. And I tend to like backs that create for themselves a bit more than guys who rely on the holes to be there. So I did ding him a little bit for that. But overall, I do think that he is a second-tier back in this class.
Definitely.
Onto a guy that is getting hype, and maybe it's just from, I think we might be leading this train, or at least close to it.
We're part of it.
Yeah, we're definitely part of it. Darrell Henderson.
Again, a guy who I fucking love, and Darrell Henderson, massive big playmaker, 8.9 yards per carry in his junior, and I think it's in his final 2 seasons. I think he had 8.2 for his career, 22 touchdowns in that same final season, 63 total receptions, including 8 receiving touchdowns and a 15.4 yards per reception as a receiver. Dominator rating around 32% for his final season, and that takes into account the 25 total touchdowns and just over 2,200 scrimmage yards. He's fast, shows a lot of great bursts. Vision at times can be a bit lacking because he likes to see the hole and rip through it. That's the type of runner he's going to be, so expect that to be there at the next level. He's slightly undersized in terms of 5'8", but I think his base is 208 pounds, so he shows he's got good frame. You know, think of Maurice Jones-Drew with a lot more burst and top end speed. He does run a bit upright at times for a guy his size, so that could lead to fumbles and potential injury. But I love Darrell Henderson as a high upside pick and a guy that we were slept on, and I think he's going to see a lot of hype when he becomes a day 2 pick.
I think you will also. He has already got the low pad level going for him because of his hype. His second 40 at the combine was a 4.37. It was officially a 4.49, which is the average, but he does have just absolutely insane speed. 2,000-yard seasons, both over 8 yards per attempt. He did have a 200 attempt season, so he can handle some workload. Just incredibly explosive, though. He's a game-breaker type of player. Subtle cuts without breaking stride or losing speed, which is what you like to see. Very, very good balance. Watched him bounce off defenders on his tape just a ton. Makes people get a body on him to tackle him. Small at the line, great vision in the open field, and uses his angles for real this time, not like what we said about Ronald Jones.
Yeah.
But he runs a ton of Wildcat. Looks okay as a thrower when he's running Wildcat, so he's going to be versatile. The knocks, vision at the line, as you mentioned, is just average because he likes to just rip through it. Decides to get downhill or stretch when the opposite would be a better choice, so the instincts aren't quite there. He'll try to roll it outside when he should just cut upfield and go, or his holes will close that he's trying to rip through, and he's agile enough to bounce it outside, but doesn't. Doesn't look like he's necessarily trusted as a pass blocker either, so that's going to be an issue. And then he's not a pile pusher, but if you get him in a 1-2 punch, kind of a thunder and lightning type of scenario, that's not to say that he's like a pure pass catcher, but he's not going to do the power back lifting.
He's one of the more explosive in terms of you can get him in open space. This is a guy that can be a lot like Kris Johnson was, and we'll get to another guy later with similar type of path potentially. You put him on a team that can create a lot of space for him, there can be a lot of good fantasy things for him.
Yep. All right, let's go the other way. After we talked up Darrell Henderson, Damian Harris, Alex Barnes, going the other way, Elijah Holyfield's a guy that caught a lot of hype early on, and then he had the worst combine out of everybody. Bench was fine, but he put up a 4.78 40, just a 29.5 vertical, and a broad jump under 10. Not good for explosiveness, not good for speed. This is Evander Holyfield's son, the legendary boxer. So, is there a saving grace to Elijah Holyfield that keeps him on the radar?
I like his tape. He was ranked pretty highly for me before the combine, and then because of how bad the combine was, and just turns from the advanced metrics, and from that whole upfield, there's not a lot of guys that really performed in the NFL who posted similar traits in terms of his size, his athleticism, and then what he did in college. A guy just like Damon Harris and Josh Jacobs, he was kind of pigeonholed around great to fantastic running backs, and Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, and then next year with DeAndre Swift. 6.2 yards per carry in his career, it's pretty good. He won't get involved in the passing game, but he does have the ability to run routes out of the backfield. He did line up out of the slot, I think, a couple times. So there is some okay upside there. It's just with this bad combine, how far is he going to drop in the draft? I think the name from Georgia, I think the fact that he went to Georgia could help him in that regard, just like with with guys from Alabama. It's just how far is he going to drop because of this? Well,
and the fact that he produced. Athletic traits aren't everything. He did have good vision at every level. He could find the hole. He could hit the hole. One cut runner that didn't try to do too much. At the second and third level, he used his vision to pick up extra yards, so taking good angles, showing a real good sense about what he was doing. He's a good pass blocker as well, and he could push piles. He could end up having a LeGarrette Blount type of career. Kind of what I see for him.
He was the number one pass blocker in terms of pass blocking efficiency per PFF. So there could be a role for him. We've seen people with bad combines at least carve out a role, in the NFL. It's just we haven't seen somebody where how far he fell be able to do it. So it's a bit of an uphill climb, but the tape suggests otherwise, which is good.
He's going to be a guy that a lot of people are going to be down on because of the combine, and people put a ton of stock into the athletic numbers. That's going to have some upside for you to pick up in your rookie draft slate. Landing spot matters, but that's my initial take on it.
Yeah. And draft capital, I think, too, just because I don't want to, if a team takes him round 6 or 7, there's not a lot of love there already.
Yeah. All right. Last guy that is kind of catching hype that I don't think is deserved at all, that's Mike Weber. I hated this guy's tape. I fell asleep. I went to make a sandwich. I woke back up, watched 2 more games, and said, why do people like this guy? He shows some burst when a hole is there. His hands are okay. I guess he's strong enough, but he doesn't navigate traffic well at all. He showed absolutely no vision, missing wide into open cutback lanes, running into defenders, not creating for himself in the least bit. It doesn't really do anything special in open space either. He's got a career 5.5 yards per reception. He's not dynamic. This is not a guy that you should be hyping or drafting.
Yeah, I decided not to watch this tape because of how much you hated him, so I kind of just fell back on that. He did run at the combine. He posted a 4.47 40, just gave him a nice size adjusted speed score. He did not do any burst or agility drill, so he's not enough to be warranted a score there. 22 on the bench. He did lose his job his sophomore season beyond to J.K. Dobbins, which kind of hurt him because he was getting hype coming off of his freshman season where he posted a great year, hit over 1,000 yards, 181 attempts. It's just after that, it just kind of fell off for him as he kind of lost his role.
Yeah, he kind of lost his role, and again, there was just nothing on tape. Everything was offensive line created. I did not see enough from him to think that he's worth the hype that he's getting. So just wanted to throw that out there and let you guys know that if you're hyping him up, he's getting the Kalen Ballard treatment from me.
So don't draft him.
Don't draft him. All right. We're going to fight now. We're officially fighting for this part.
Ooh.
Got 3 players that you and I were well apart on. So the way that we'll do this is we won't really fight. I'll let you say what you like. I'll eviscerate them, and then we'll move on. And you can choose to lean to whoever side you want.
That's exactly.
First guy, for those of you that don't know how we rank players, by the way, which is probably most of you, we rate them on a scale of 9, and we go through a bunch of different traits, average them together, and then adjust based on the things that may not have necessarily been included in those traits to come up with a composite. We go out to the 10th of a percentage point, and then we loosely base our rankings around that. We rank people, we'll adjust and move and adjust based on combine and blah, blah, blah. But that's kind of our starting point when we're watching film, at least. So, Rodney Anderson, you had him at a 7.3. I had him at a 6.7. This is tied for our largest gap on a player. So, what do you like about Rodney Anderson? And I think I'm probably going to agree with most of it because I know there's some likable traits, but let's see what you got to say.
For him is if he didn't get hurt, like he's got great size, adjusted speed. He's got great size. He's a perfect size for a 3-down back. He'd be the number 1 running back, I think, in this class without a doubt. He'd probably be competing with the receivers as at the 101, but because of the massive health issues that he had, we are here right now. Watching his 2017 tape, that's the only season he played a full year. He looked fantastic in it. He shows a lot of burst, shows a lot of speed. Yes, the vision is a bit inconsistent at times, but again, you're playing in an offense with Baker Mayfield and a great offensive line that's spread out, mostly for the most part. You don't need to show great vision. He runs routes as a receiver. He got involved in the passing game at 8.5 yards per carry in college, 98th percentile per player profiler. This guy could do it all. If he would have came out last year, maybe he could have competed, but that was one of the best classes we've seen in a while. So I understand why he came back. Same for Bryce Love when we get to him a little bit later. There's a lot of concerns with Rodney Anderson, but the upside is there in a guy who I wish wasn't getting so hyped on because I would love to take him in the top of the second round or even mid-second because I think he'll end up being a late first-round pick. There's a lot to love here, and I think he is the biggest boom-bust running back in this draft class.
Yep, so let me talk about the buster a bit. I agree with the good straight line acceleration and the fact that he can chunk off yards first off and the pass catching ability. There wasn't anything you said that I disagree with, but the things I did not like about him, he wasn't exceptionally agile even though the straight line speed was there. I saw him get just in at least what I watched, he got tackled easily in the backfield almost as many times as he ripped off chunk plays. It seemed like he was missing a lot of open holes if they weren't blocked necessarily, so not where the play was supposed to go. But again, that just creative instinct gets stuffed at the line more than you'd like to see. And again, that goes back to just instinct and vision, which is what you said. And I didn't see him really engage a whole lot as a blocker. He gets run over a lot. So as much as I like the straight line speed and his ability as a pass catcher, just the agility and the vision concerns were enough for me to fade on him a bit.
Yeah, and he's already going to be 23 years old. He's still raw. He missed his freshman year, his true freshman season to a broken leg. I think he missed the following season, 2016, with a neck injury. I want to see he tore his ACL, or he hurt his leg, I think, this year. It's just there's a lot you have to be concerned with, but there is potential if you don't have to reach for him. You just don't reach for Rodney Anderson. Let somebody else do that. If he falls to a comfortable level, I say mid to high second, I'm fine with because there's not a whole lot to love after that in terms of the receivers that are left over potentially. But just don't reach for him.
Yeah, don't. If he falls to you, I see the upside being there. He's just, like you said, he's boom bust, and he could bust, injuries or otherwise. So I agree with that completely. Let's move it along. Next guy on the list is a guy I was high on and you weren't. This is the other guy that tied for a giant gap. That's Jordan Scarlett out of Florida. So leading off, he was not invited to the combine. The reason for that is he's Antonio Callaway.
Yep.
All the talent in the world got caught up in that credit card fraud scheme and then had some injuries and some other things to go along with that, but he was suspended for an entire season. Athletically, tested very well at his pro day. 4.47 40. 3-cone was not necessarily great at a 7.37. 21 on bench. 4.63 20-yard shuttle. So some good and some bad there. But what I saw out of Jordan Scarlett that I liked, he pinballs off tackles, maintains balance through contact. Thought he showed really good burst. He did show the big playability. Was adequate in pass protection. He wasn't necessarily shifty, but I saw a lot of like body contortion and subtle cuts really that to make himself slippery. He did these little things that just made him hard to tackle unless you really got a body on him. I thought he could change direction and pick up yardage even if the play was not necessarily developing quickly. It was kind of a patience thing, but not, how do I want to describe this? It was kind of a patience thing, but not a patience thing. It was, I'm waiting for it. Okay, it's not there. I'm going to go over here now. And he'd find a way to make yards happen. I thought he had good vision, especially for cutback lanes, and was decisive in his choices on what lane he was going to take. And he moved some piles a bit. He didn't seem like he quit on plays a whole lot. So to me, he's a guy whose draft capital is going to be hurt because he did some dumb things. But I definitely think he's talented, and I think he carries some upside. The numbers weren't necessarily there either because he had split carries with LaMichael Pirine. And as we know, any running back with the last name named Pirine is automatically greatness. So that hurts some. But overall, I just thought that he showed me enough in his tape to think, okay, the talent's there, so let's see where he lands.
Yeah, for me, I agree with you on a lot of things because I actually liked his tape. I knocked him so much just because of his off-the-field issues. He was suspended his freshman year bowl game because of weed, because that still has to be a thing.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
And he posted the worst drop rate I've ever seen at 35.7%. It's terrible, but there is a silver lining to this because the way he gets involved in the passing game, there's a lot of upside there. You can't see that with stats. You have to watch the tape to see that. And his issue can all be fixed through coaching. It's all hand catch. It's all catch technique. He clap catches it. For those of you who don't know what a clap catch is, try, clapping your hands and having a football thrown at the same time.
Yeah, and then imagine the time it takes to clap your hands around something that's traveling at you at 50 to 60 miles an hour.
Exactly. There's a lot to love here, though. 128.3 elusive rating, which is 5th in the class. Great size adjusted speed score. Would have loved to see a lot more from his burst and agility score, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm. It's just, for me, is he shows some early day 3 talent, which is why I liked him. But I don't know if he's going to get drafted. I think he needs to land at a team that needs to believe in him. Antonio Callaway got the love he needed because he was a 4th-round pick, and the coaching staff wanted to help him get better. Surrounded himself with players, told Josh Gordon didn't last there long after he got drafted. At least showed some guidance to him. I'm a big concern with Scarlett because you don't get the hype. With Antonio Callaway, he was regarded as one of the more talented receivers in last year's class. Scarlett is kind of in the middle of what is a pretty mediocre running back class. So it just depends where he lands. For him, it's not landing spot. For him, is all about draft capital. What team wants to invest in him and then make him a better running back.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And again, a lot of it is going to come down to landing spot. These rankings will get flipped on their head post-draft. We'll talk about that in the post-draft episodes, but I just saw, like you did with Anderson, I just saw the upside there despite some of the other stuff. So moving on, Bryce Love, we were not quite as far apart on him, just 0.4 of a point. I had him at a 6.6. You had him at a 7.0. So let's talk Bryce Love, who before this season was largely considered the best running back in the class.
Yeah, just like Ronnie Anderson, it's all about injury concerns with him. He's also been undersized. He's still rehabbing from an ACL injury, which he suffered at last game of the season in December. It just depends how long the process is for him to get back. But ACL injuries for running back are starting to become Tommy John surgeries for pitchers. So not as concerned there. It's all about his junior year for him. 21 total yards, 19 touchdowns. Wasn't used much of a pass catcher because he was so dominant as a runner. He still finished with 49 total receptions. He had 20, I think, in his final year, where the offense in general became shitty and just a bad run blocking. For Bryce Love, for me, it's all about landing spot, because what I see is the most explosive running back in space in this class. I think if he didn't get hurt, he would have been the fastest back in this class, no question. Obviously, he can't back it up because he's still rehabbing a torn ACL, so we're all going off of tape here. There is some concerns because of his size. The fact, can he come back from a torn ACL? Can he be a running back that could be more than just a speed guy at the next level? I don't know if he can be, which is why he's not rated as high as some of the other running backs in this class. I think he could become a Gio Bernard type of running back. They fit similar size. I think they could have a similar role in terms of being this explosive running back in space. I would like to see more from him as a pass catcher. He did post the seventh best in the draft class at 40.6% of the time he was not tackled on first contact, which shows a lot, from a speed back that he can muscle through some of those weaker tackle attempts. This is the potential next Kris Johnson. It's just we've seen good Kris Johnson in a 2,000-yard season, and we've seen bad Kris Johnson, which is a lot of other years after that. So there is a boom bust to him completely.
There is. So with Bryce Love, I did what I do with a lot of backs who have a big season and then a not good season, and I go back and watch those 2 years and I try to figure out why. And I try to see necessarily what changed and if there was something that changed with the back and his traits or if it changed with the offense around him. And as you mentioned with Bryce Love, it changed with the offense around him. So when I read off these cons, these were not any different from what I would have said if he came out last year versus what I said this year. And it's that he relies on a ton on, and this is very Kris Johnson-like, relies a ton on his blockers to create space for him. If that doesn't happen, he's ineffective. He's getting stuffed at the line. He's not pushing piles, not breaking tackles, not cutting it outside. If the holes aren't there, he's not doing anything. He's got a history of ankle injuries. Not good for a running back. You need your ankles.
Yeah, most times.
As you mentioned, he's a bit undersized. As I just said, he's not going to move piles or break a ton of tackles. And he doesn't make himself small at the line either. There's a lot of instinctive things that I did not see out of Bryce Love, and those were consistent between his big season and between his not big season. I saw both, and it's like you said, he had the big season because the offense around him was good. He was getting blocks, he was getting holes, and he's an explosive, fast guy. And we've seen, look at Kansas City, look at Damian Williams. When you get a guy behind an offensive line, they're going to produce. And I think that's the type of back Bryce Love is going to be, is you're going to have to put him behind an offensive line that can open up holes for him to where he can use that explosiveness, or he's not going to do anything with it.
Yeah, he's got to show more. He's got to show more as a pass catcher. I think that's where you're going to get him in space, toss plays and things like that, get him outside the tackles. We didn't get to see a lot of him as a pass catcher because of what he was able to do, on the ground his junior year, as I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. Got to see a little bit more from him in his senior year before he got hurt, but because of how bad the offense took a step back, the offensive line was pretty piss poor. It's you're hoping to get you're basically hoping for him to land on a team. I was hoping for Philadelphia, honestly, to be paired with Jordan Howard, I think would be fantastic. But it just all depends. If he lands on a team with a bad offensive line or just a bad offense in general, he'll struggle and likely not do much. But if you put him on a team who's high-powered, who can get him in space, you could see a guy who could be one of the better running backs in this class.
I agree completely with that. You just got to be on a team that's high-powered and we'll use him in space.
Yep, exactly.
All right, we found some middle ground in all those guys. Let's review these beers.
Beer review.
All right, Dan, Hawaii 5 Ale from Destihl Brewing in Normal, Illinois. What did you think?
For having 5 fruits in it, I was hoping for more. We talked about this at work a bunch because a lot of my coworkers said the same thing. You'd wish you'd get something from one of the fruits, and I think they all kind of just fuck with each other a bit. So it seems kind of bland on the nose, or on the mouth. You get a little bit more of the citrus, a little bit more of the coconut on the back end, which at least gives it something. On the nose, it's got the reminiscence of a blonde ale. So it's a bit skunky. It's nothing really much there. There are some fruits that stick out. I just think there's too much going on that can create a true fruit ale here.
All right, and for me, I was drinking vanilla base weight, or vanilla cocoa base weight, technically, from Side Project Brewing, which is a different take on their normal porter. It is a robust porter, which is like not quite a stout, but far enough from a regular porter to where, it's not a porter either. It's the in between. Yeah. Anyway, on to the flavor profile. Very, very good. It's got a little bit of nuttiness, which you'd expect from a porter, but man, the cocoa in this one is there. It's like you're biting into a piece of dark chocolate, I like dark chocolate, so that is a fantastic flavor to me. But you got that bitterness that's there. The vanilla doesn't pop out a ton. It's there a little bit in the aftertaste, but it's just, there's a ton of cocoa in this beer, and it really, really shows. Overall, one of the better porters that I've had. Side Project does good stuff. Again, mostly sours and wild ales, but this is a very, very good beer. One other thing I will say about the base weight, I had their nitro base weight while I was there. Normally not a big fan of my nitro beers, but it was one of the better nitro based beers that I've had as far as the creamy mouthfeel of it and everything goes. But yeah, overall, I thought Side Project did a very, very good job with this one. I still got 3 more in the fridge, and I'm happy that I do.
Nice.
All right, let's get back to the running backs. The next section, we're just going to talk about a couple guys that didn't necessarily, they're not catching hype. These are going to be your true sleepers. People aren't necessarily talking. People aren't really building them up. The first guy I got on this list is James Williams, and James Williams is a very, very James White type of player to me.
I see James White, and I also put down Chris Thompson.
Yes. He's bigger than Chris Thompson. He's 5'11", 212, so he's Kamara size. Oh, that's Dexter. Hold on. Wrong Williams.
Yes. He's 5'9", 197 is what he weighed in at the combine.
James Booby Williams.
James Booby Williams.
Booby. He was at Washington State, and one thing you get out of that is that he's a very, very adept pass catcher, not something you normally see coming out of college, but 202 career receptions. Dan, you've looked at enough stat lines. That's an unheard of number for guys coming out of college most of the time.
He had 154 receptions in his final 2 seasons.
Yep.
I think he had more receptions than Riley Ridley. More receptions than DK Metcalf.
Yep. 83 last year, 613 yards on those. He also carried the ball 122 times for 560 yards. His career low is 48 receptions. 2 seasons over 70. Never carried the ball more than 122 times, though, but 7.1 yards per reception. A very experienced pass catcher. He's got great hands, which is rare in college. I thought he had very, very good shiftiness. Avoided tackles well. Not going to blow you away with speed, but he was fast enough to make plays. Open field vision was absolutely plus for him. He sees defenders, can stop, shift, or adjust to make them miss, and the balance was incredible. He reminded me a lot of Kareem Hunt or Alvin Kamara when they get into the open field with the balance and the way that he can make guys miss with just those subtle shifts, even though they're not necessarily the blow-you-away fast guys.
Yeah, I mean, he had 107.4 elusive rating for PFF. He's number 8 in the class. He's the number 1 running back in this class and not getting tackled on first contact at a 44.3%. So you get a lot of good things from him when he gets the ball in his hands. He's too undersized to be a 3-down back. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be a pass blocker. He was 83rd in pass blocking efficiency at just 90. I believe that's one of the worst in the class among running backs. But you're not going to expect that from him. He's too thin to be a full-time pass blocker. That's why I see a lot of James White. So that's why I see a lot of Chris Thompson, maybe even a better, more athletic Theo Burdick. That's where his role is going to be. He just career yards per carry of 4.9. This is a air raid offense. You don't see a lot of running, and when you do, it's a lot of just basic ass shit. So for him, it's not even about landing spot. It's just about opportunity for him. Can he get on the field and be the dynamic pass catcher, from the beginning? And that's what I hope to see from him. I hope he can get a role with that. And just a guy that I want on my team, regardless of where he lands in his rookie draft or in the actual draft.
He's this year's Nyheim Hines to me.
Yes.
A guy who didn't necessarily show maybe not all the traits you'd expect from a third down back, but still went in and got himself 80-plus targets.
And he had a 3.5% drop rate.
Yeah.
That's fucking unbelievable.
Yeah,
for a back with as many receptions that he's had.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
Yep. So James Booby Williams out of Washington State is a guy that I'm really, really going to be targeting heavy in that second round.
I agree.
All
completely.
Right. Moving on. Another guy we both had down before we go to the guys we didn't both have down. Myles Gaskin.
He's not getting talked about a lot. The offense, I think it's just because of how the offense have shaped up, especially with their quarterback. Like I am slipping on his name. I don't even think we talked about him in the quarterback episode.
We did. Jake Browning.
But anyways, so Myles Gaskin's a mega producer at the college level. 62 total touchdowns, nearly 6,000 total scrimmage yards, and over 200 attempts and over 230 touches in every year he was in college. Great to see that he can handle that type of workload. It's a bit concerning that he has a lot of wear on the tires at this point, but
he's durable.
No,
never below 220 carries. He was durable.
And on a Washington offense, or just a Washington team in general, too, that ranked pretty highly the last 3 seasons. 33.5% college dominator rating, 77th percentile was fantastic. He did this with a bad offensive line. Shows good vision, at least most of the time. He's got decent power for a guy his size. He can get skinny through the holes, break through arm tackles. He's got good balance through contact. He's got good balance in his cuts. Already 22 years old, but that's all right. I think he can be somebody that could land into a committee, with the draft could, end up being the top running back in whichever team he lands on, if there's a lot of opportunity for him, to shine.
Yep, I agree. Let's talk about his fumble numbers for a second. You know what those were?
I don't think he's never fumbled.
He's never fumbled.
Yeah, I don't think he's fumbled.
This is a guy that carried the ball, 945 times in college and never fumbled. His rushing
actually, that's a lie.
Once.
He had 1 fumble in 18, had 4 career fumbles. But either way, he had 945 attempts and only 4 fumbles.
Which is really good.
It's pretty good.
Rushing production mirrors Royce Freeman's college numbers. But, yeah, elite level balance. You hit on everything I had. Above average vision and burst. Sees holes at the line. Sets up his blocks well. Very, very good hands. He split out wide a decent amount. With a nice route tree to go with it, just as a throw in there. So, yeah, I agree with everything you said about him. I think he's a guy that could end up in a committee and then could win that committee or win the majority of that committee.
There's one glaring concern. This is per play profiler. His player comp is Ronald Jones.
Meh.
It's all right. He won't become Ronald Jones.
I liked his tape more.
He doesn't have the hype surrounding him. I don't think he'll be a day 2 pick, but I think he will be an early day 3 pick. Which can still be very well produced.
Yep. All right, we talked about a James White comp a couple minutes ago, and James Williams. The guy that you have down next is another guy that's drawing some James White comps,
and that is going to be Justice Hill. Again, slightly undersized at 5'10", 198. We just talked about in James Williams. He's not the pass catcher, and it's not even close. But he is a better runner. He's been given that opportunity at back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in his freshman and sophomore year, which means he was able to get it done when he was far younger. Showed great size, or showed great speed. He had a great speed score even for his size, and a great burst score, which makes him, again, just like Kris Johnson, a home run hitter. Every time he touches the football, there's a lot to like from him if you can get him at a good price. If you can land into a good offense. I would have liked to see a little bit more from him from the elusive standpoint. He's ready to just a 59, 40th in the class. Well, that's not his role. That's not what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to be a one cut and go. Put him in space, let him work, get him the football in his hands because he is a decent pass catcher. So there is a lot to like from him in your late 2nd to early 3rd round drafts.
Yep, you got to get him in space, though. He's going to be a guy that kind of like Corey Grant, I believe. No. Why is this leaving me? Jacksonville's running back that was really good in the screen game.
Wasn't that Corey Grant?
I think it was Corey Grant.
It was Corey Grant. You love Corey Grant.
Yeah,
you are.
This is kind of like Corey Grant to me, though. I think he's going to be a guy that is good in the screen game because of what you mentioned. He's not elusive, and the reason for that is that his cuts are very, very long. They're not short. They're not subtle. He doesn't change the direction well. He didn't test in the 3-cone, and his tape definitely shows why. He missed some cutback lanes. He's not really built to navigate traffic. Marginally undersized, but he shows good acceleration. He's fast enough to get the edge. He shows a receiving ability to where he's a guy that's just built to operate in space. Just don't expect him to operate in traffic.
No, and it just depends how much the offense will ask from him as a runner. He does tend to bounce his runs outside more than he needs to, but again, due to his size, you don't want him to take a lot of punishment when it comes to running straight up the middle. So his role is going to be very, very, his role is going to be pretty defined, and it's just whatever offense he lands into. And if you can see some early down work, this might be a guy where you have to hold on to him for a couple of seasons until he can find himself on a team that knows how to use a running back like him.
Yep. And I'm going to go to the opposite side of the tape here, from a guy that needs to operate in space to a guy that absolutely doesn't need to operate in space. That's going to be Alexander Madison out of Boise State. I saw somebody, I wish I remembered who it was. One person gave him hype on Twitter as I was trying to figure out who I wanted to watch next. There are a massive list of backs. So I went and watched him next, and I was not disappointed with that. He's 5'11", 221, and he is very, very much Alex Barnes light in this class. He's the Alex Barnes Consolation Prize. He played a 3-year career at Boise State, 581 attempts, 302 of those were last year, 33 career touchdowns, 60 receptions for over 500 yards. Last year on the 302 attempts, turned that into 1,400 yards and 17 touchdowns, so still pretty good. 550-plus touches over the last 2 seasons and hasn't missed a game. He's durable. Shows that he can be an every-down back if he's given the opportunity. He's got 2 double-digit touchdown seasons, so statistically he performed. He's a downhill runner that can deliver a pop. Very hard to tackle if he manages to get beyond that first level. He will carry guys with him. He does show some vision and shiftiness, mostly to find holes that are there. He's not overly elusive. I thought he had an above-average top speed for his size, and on tape he showed the ability to kind of run away from defenders. Now, granted, that is the Mountain West, so take that for what it is. Not the quickest accelerator, doesn't really create for himself as a straight downhill runner, but I guess carrying people is creating for yourself. He is a bit of a body catcher, and I don't know that the speed is going to allow him to get outside at the NFL level like it did in the Mountain West, but overall, I think he's a between-the-tackles guy that is going to find himself a niche role.
I think he'll have a role in a team. He had 1 fumble on 581 attempts for his career, and he didn't drop a pass. Above average size and frame at 5'10", 221, somewhere around there. I think PFF has their metrics a little different. He's also not even 21 yet, so there is a lot of potential more upside and growth into his body. Great burst score at 123, 75th percentile. Loves to lower his shoulder and deliver a shot. I think his running back style is a bit like Derrick Henry, except we actually like Alexander Mattison, and we don't like Derrick Henry. So hopefully there's some more there. A couple concerns, though, is the fact that he is going to be a pure runner, likely at the next level. Only 4.9 yards per carry for his career, and a 4.67 40, which gave him a pretty below average speed score. But I don't think that's going to be his role. You could see maybe an above average LeGarrette Blount, maybe as Marshawn Lynch got older into his career. That could be what Mattison turns himself into.
I agree with that completely. All right, we've talked about a lot of people. Let's go ahead and rank them, and if there's anybody that did manage to be in our consensus top 15 we didn't rank, we'll go ahead and give you a few words on them. If you're watching on YouTube, this is the part where you get graphics. All right. Our number 1 consensus running back, Miles Sanders, if you didn't pick that up from the fact that we both just said absolutely glowing things about him.
Yes.
Following that up with Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, Damian Harris, Daryl Henderson, all guys we had plenty of good things to say about. Some concerns, though. Alex Barnes, Myles Gaskin, James Williams. Alexander Madison is our number 9. Rodney Anderson rounds out the top 10. That was mostly you, Dan.
Yes, I tried.
Yeah, you succeeded. 11 through 15, Elijah Holyfield, Jordan Scarlett. The next 2 did not get mentioned, so let's pause here for a second to talk Benny Snell and Travion Williams. Just a few words on Benny Snell.
I didn't hate his tape. I called him the poor man's Derrick Henry. He's going to be a grinder at the next level, first and second down type of guy. Love his college armor rating at 41.1%. He reached 1,000 yards in every season. But he's not athletic. His bar score was 96.9, 12th percentile. He's not a pass catcher at the next level. For guys like him, I need to see a little more from a pass catcher if he's not going to get drafted high enough to see a lot of work. But he could carve himself a backup role, which could see him getting some fantasy relevant games in the future.
Yeah. I will say this about his productivity. He had 3 seasons over 1,000 yards and over 10 touchdowns, all over 5 yards per carry. For the SEC, him and Darren McFadden are the only 2 guys to do that 3 times. The guys that did it twice, Darius Geis, Nick Chubb, Leonard Fournette, Noshawn Moreno, Cadillac Williams, and Zach Stacy all had 1 fantasy relevant season minimum in the NFL. Except Geis. I
think Snell could if he could stay into a team and then find himself into the starting role. I think he's a good enough running back who needs a lot of touches to be relevant.
Yeah. And that's average speed. He didn't make people miss. His offensive line hurt him against higher level competition. But I thought the burst was good when he wasn't being tackled by 3 people in the backfield. He makes himself small enough through the line. Vision was fine. Blocking was fine. Good size at 5'10", 224. So, as you mentioned, not athletic, but he's at worst going to be a plus backup. And then Travion Williams is our number 14, who's another guy people are kind of hyping up, who did not athletically test terribly. What did you see out of Travion?
1,000 yards his freshman season, which is good to see that he was able to find success early on into his college career. He had 271 attempts in his final season, giving him the ability to be every down back. He's similarly built to Daryl Henderson. He's 5'8", 206. So he may not see that potential role, but he at least has the BMI size to potentially compete on any given basis. 66 career receptions, best was 27. He proved it every year as a pass catcher in terms of catching the football, so I'll love to see that. His O-line was terrible. He still found ways to create for himself, even though the numbers may not show it. For me, Travion Williams, I see a Tevin Coleman solid back where he needs a good offensive line to produce because he's not massively elusive. But put him onto a team like, let's say, the Saints, he could do some pretty good things there. And we're going to talk about one of the worst streak cones I've seen from a running back at 7.44. That's pretty bad.
Yep, and I picked that up kind of with his tape. His acceleration was a big concern to me. Holes were closing up before he could get to them a lot. He didn't showcase the ability to make people miss in the open field. Didn't really have any breakaway speed, really. Like, the athleticism wasn't there, but he could settle down in zones. He was comfortable as a receiver, and he was really, really good at picking up blitzes, which screams third down back.
Yeah, it screams Tevin Coleman. So
third down
that may be his role. It just depends where he lands.
Yep. And number 15 was Bryce Love. I believe that covers everybody either of us had in our top 15. So
that is correct.
As well as the consensus. So hopefully that was informative to you. We didn't cover every back in this class because we would have been here for 3 hours. But if you have questions, as always, you can reach out to us at BeerfieldFF on Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped. Beerfield Fantasy Football on Facebook and YouTube. Leave comments. We will absolutely get back to you. So as we wrap this up, just real quick to put a bow on this outside of the rankings, Dan, who are you targeting? Who are you avoiding? Who are 2 guys maybe outside of the top tier that you'd like to get and guys you're completely avoiding?
And as always, based on landing spot, Bryce Love, Justice Hill are two guys I would love to target in the mid to late second round. Guys who I'm avoiding. We didn't talk about Devin Singletary because fuck him, and Elijah Holyfield because, again, the two worst running backs in terms of combine that did not show up on their tape. So avoiding those two at all costs.
My favorite thing about Devin Singletary was watching his tape beforehand before the combine, when everybody was hyping him based on production alone, hating it, and then him just bombing in the combine. That is my highlight of this offseason so far.
It's like, oh my God. It's like watching a beautiful train wreck.
I was begging for reasons to hate him, and I got them. As for me, I'm going to be targeting Alex Barnes and James Williams a ton. I'm going to be avoiding Mike Weber and then Bryce Love. So,
I know.
Bryce Love's the most polarizing player on this podcast. Pick your poison.
He's a more positive, I guess the more positive we've talked about Kalen Balaj.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, next episode will be coming Friday or Saturday night, as I will be traveling on Sunday. We will tweet out which one for sure as we coordinate with our special guest next week, Matt Hicks of the Fantasy Fanalist podcast. I think I called them top two earlier in the show, but you get it. So he will be here to discuss the top part of the wide receiver class with us. That is the one position that we are doing two shows on because it's a deep class. They deserve two shows. Again, April 25th, we will be live on YouTube during the first round of the draft. Come hang out with us. Be sure to tune in. As always, joined from Springfield, Illinois by Dan Thury at Thury BFF. Say bye.
You guys have a great night. Do things. I'm going to keep drinking some beer.
I am going to do the same and go make dinner after I upload this at Hot BFF with 2 Ps. Thank you again to Ryan McDowell for the shout-outs, putting those lists together. Thank you, everybody that's checking out the show for the first time. We will catch you guys next week on Beerfield Fantasy Football.
Peace.
See ya. I didn't have the outro ready.